To me, one of our ardent supporters came up and was quite impressed, Sean, to have you here. And the other media that we've got here. I'd like to remind you that when we started this in 2018, there were no media there. We didn't ask them. 4 years makes a difference, guys. 4 years of community caring makes a difference. Show Sean your sign. Show him how much you love green space. Woo! Okay, put the signs down there. You get to do this all the time. So good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to the Mille Lacs Center, our community center in Kanata North, and the Kanata Green Space Protection Coalition Town Hall. We gather tonight on the unceded and traditional territories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe peoples, keepers and defenders of the Ottawa River watershed, and little did they know the Kizil Drain. Yeah, little humor. This is our second in-person town hall. The first was just over 4 years ago, November 6, 2019, at Earl March. You were there, and so were 500 other people, because you were scared, because you were angry. I want to remind you of that tonight. Since then, we've had a Forever Green Gala, COVID, virtual meetings and undinners, tent dinners, golf tournaments, concerts, you name it, we've done it. We've come together and we've made a lot of friends along the way. And most important, I'm going to remind you of the difference we've made together. 4 years later, we have a team to introduce to you tonight. Not juniors, not freshmen, all-stars. In the past 4 years, we've welcomed a new mayor, Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, a new councillor for Ward 4 in Cathy Curry, who's running a little late, but you can welcome her again later. We also have bench strength in two accomplished representatives. A new MP and now Cabinet Minister, Jenna Sudds, and a new MPP in Karen McCrimmon. You cannot tire that one out. She'll make a special visit later. And we have our dedicated team at the KGPC that comes out every event, every meeting. 4 years and counting. Tonight we have with us, and I'm going to ask them to stand up and wave because they don't get the recognition they deserve, I feel. Tonight we have directors Kevin McCarthy, wherever he is, Kevin. He's probably moving chairs somewhere. He's here somewhere. Peter Chapman and Susan Dodge, who I think is coming back with a piece of equipment for us, as well as our event chair, Jen Fife, and our volunteer chair, Karen Noseworthy, on the side wall. We're joined tonight by John Hardy, David McNairn is here, and Neil Thomson in the front row. We also have our lead litigator and our sharpshooter, Alyssa Tomkins from Galway and WL. I think they all deserve a round of applause. In over 4 years, this community, our community, has raised and spent over $500,000 combating Clublink, minnow, and Richcraft proposal. We've had our ups. Our first two victories fighting for intervenor status in December 2019, and then again to participate in the first 40% agreement hearing in July 2020. We cleaned up. We were 2 for 2. Stepping up to the backstop, the city in opposition at the OLT, we managed to spend $250,000. While Clublink got its approval, the tribunal tied their hands with over 192 obligatory deliverables, including a stormwater plan of which the city still must see and approve. On appeal by Clublink in 2022, the Court of Appeal modified the agreement, and that put us back in front of Justice LaBrosse to recontest the amended 40PA. And his last decision is why we're here tonight. It was disappointing. I know that. I got your letters. I got your calls. The law is nuanced and often convoluted. Tonight, our goal is to provide the explanation and our next best step, what it looks like and why we want to take it. The legal experts believe that this decision is reversible and winnable. The 40% agreement is the protection all Marchwood Lakeside homeowners believe they had. Many of you have deeds of ownership attesting to it. This has not changed, but other things have. The value of connected, expanded urban green space has only intensified. Mental and physical health are acknowledged key benefits. Like fresh, clean air. It is no longer considered a nice to have. The safety afforded by functioning stormwater management systems is now no longer assumed. Investment in stormwater management models and system maintenance is now moving to the top of government budget modeling. Risk has increased with climate change, and so too weather events in both size and frequency. 2023 was worse than 2022, worse than 2021. I think we all know what to expect in 2024. And so, tonight we have the Mayor and Councillor Curry to give you the city's perspective on the recent decision and an understanding of where the Clublink application is at present and what can be done going forward. Alyssa Tomkins will have a full explanation on why the KGPC should participate in this appeal of the LaBrosse decision. There will be time for questions and answers. We have the media here tonight. 4 years later, they understand the importance of our issue, not just to our community, but to communities everywhere. Tonight, the KGPC needs to hear and know that you remain engaged, that you agree with us that the 40% agreement is worth defending to the very end. Yes!
Could you hit the down arrow key on the laptop? Down arrow.
But I want to make it clear. The work on the appeal must start now. And to pursue it, we need your donations. It's now or never. Let's start our evening off with Kanata-Carleton MP Jenna Sudds.
Did I hear that?
$500,000. Let's not be.
$500,000. My goodness. Good evening, everyone. Walking into this room takes me back in time. It makes me think of the number of times that we have gathered in the hundreds to continue in this fight. And I was reflecting today on my way back from Parliament Hill that it was almost exactly 5 years ago that Clublink submitted their development application. It was almost exactly 4 years ago where 700 of us gathered at Brook Street Hotel, and I see a lot of familiar faces from that night there, as well as the other meetings Barbara mentioned as well, at Earl of March, back here. You know, you continue to show up as a community, and it is so incredibly important that we continue to do that. It was also, interestingly enough, almost exactly 3 years ago, when City Council unanimously supported, at the time myself as your councillor, a motion to deny Clublink's application. And, you know, when I reflect, I am incredibly grateful not only for everyone in this room who continues to show up and to raise their voice in opposition, but also for the incredible leadership of Barbara and all of those engaged with the Kanata Protection, yes. And their steadfast leadership to this day, and I know continuing. And I'm also really grateful to Cathy Curry and to Mayor Sutcliffe. And I remember actually Mayor Sutcliffe during his campaign, him wanting to learn about this issue, him wanting to understand why this mattered to our community. And so we went to doors together. We went to doors and we spoke with some of you. We knocked on your doors so that we could ensure that our now mayor understood the importance of this issue. And I would suggest, and I think you will all agree, that he's followed through on that commitment to stand for us and continues to do so today. And I know all of you are as well. We have incredible advocates at the city level, and that is so, so important as this battle continues. And I'd be remiss, as Barbara said, our MPP, Karen McCrimmon, undoubtedly has been very engaged, and I know she wishes she could be here, but unfortunately Queen's Park's in Toronto. She doesn't have the benefit that I do of being here in Ottawa, but I know she's with us in spirit. All that to say, I continue to engage with all of you, with all of the officials I've just mentioned. It's important that we continue the fight together, and I assure you that anything that's within my purview, I certainly continue to engage in, and I'm there to continue to support this fight for our community. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now that he's been totally introduced, Mayor Mark Sutcliffe.
Thank you, Barbara. Thanks, everyone. First of all, it's great to be in Kanata tonight. Great to be with all of you. Such a wonderful turnout this evening. Thank you all for coming here tonight. Merci d'être ici ce soir pour cette réunion très, très importante. So first of all, I got to say, this is really inspiring to me to see this crowd here tonight, to see the effort that's gone into this battle over the last 5 years, to see the support from the community, to see the community leadership that is in place along this journey. And I want to say in particular, I want to thank Barbara for her extraordinary leadership. Barbara's an incredible force, and we're all grateful for what she has done and continues to do, and along with all the other volunteers who are leading this. This is really demonstrating the power of community. It's demonstrating the power of leadership, demonstrating the power of volunteers, demonstrating the power of advocacy. So you are doing amazing things, and I'm so grateful to all of you for the energy and the time that you have put into this. This is so important. I want to thank Jenna, Sudds as well, and Karen McCrimmon, and Councillor Cathy Curry. You're fortunate to have some great representatives in your community. You're lucky to have these three wonderful women who are representing you at Queen's Park and on Parliament Hill and at City Hall, and who are all on your side in this battle. And, you know, this is, by the way, before I go any further, please recognize them. Also, speaking of great representatives, Marianne Wilkinson is here tonight, longtime representative of this community. And last week I had the honor of presenting Marianne with the Order of Ottawa. So that was a very special night and an honor to present it. Jenna mentioned that last year I knocked on doors in this area during the election campaign. I also knocked on doors in this area as recently as a few weeks ago. And I spoke to a couple of people on the way in whose doors I knocked on. And I've heard the message loud and clear from you in terms of what you want from your city government. And our commitment to you remains the same. We will fight with you every step of the way to protect your green space and to make sure that this deal is honored. So we are with you every step of the way. And I know this has been a long journey for many of you, and it's not over. And you've suffered a setback, and that's disappointing for all of us. We've suffered a setback. But this is only one step in the process. There are many steps yet to come. And I want you to know that we are with you every step of the way, and that we will not rest until you are protected, and your green space is protected, your rights are protected, and that we get the outcome that we all want. So we're not going to rest until that's done. This is your home, this is your community, it's your way of life, it's your green space, and you deserve to have it, and you deserve to keep it. And a deal is a deal, and that's why this is important not just to you and not just to the residents of this area, but to every single resident in Ottawa, because if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere in our city. And we can't let it happen here or anywhere in our city. So as you know, the city has indicated that we will appeal Justice Labrosse's decision. I'll tell you that was a very easy decision for us to make. We will go ahead with an appeal, and I'll let Alyssa speak to that in more detail. I'm not the lawyer here. I don't have the expertise. But we need to fight for a healthy community. We need to fight for green space. We need to fight for places where people can gather. We need to fight for the rights of homeowners. And this goes beyond just, of course, a golf course. This is something that belongs to the entire community. It's a place where people walk and cross-country ski and run and snowshoe. It's a place where kids go tobogganing. It's a place where they go sledding. And it's not just about recreation. As Barbara alluded to, increasingly, as we see what's happening with climate change, it's also so important for the environment. So we have to make sure that we are building communities that are sustainable, that are fighting against climate change, and green space is such an important ingredient in that. So we must continue. We must design neighborhoods that withstand these extreme weather events. And the plan that was presented, the application that was made, doesn't do that. So it doesn't meet the test, and that's why we can't let it go ahead. So the impact of this type of development has the potential to go well beyond just one neighborhood or one community. It is something that could be felt across the city, and that's why it's so important that we as your city government are behind you. So please, continue to be engaged as you are tonight. Continue to support Barbara and all the other volunteers who are behind this extraordinary effort. I know, the fact that you've raised $500,000 sounds like a lot of money, but I'm actually surprised with the impact that you've had and the amount of work that's been done, that it's not a bigger number, because that $500,000 has been leveraged into a lot of activity and results so far. So you're getting a lot of value for that money. And I hope you continue to financially support and with your time and energy support what this great team is doing. Because it is vitally important, not just for you, but for the entire city. So I ask you tonight, who's ready to keep working to protect green space? Who's ready to do that? Who's ready to keep working together to fight for what's right? Who's ready to fight for the rights of property owners, not just in Kanata, but throughout the city? And I promise you, we are with you every step of the way. Thank you very much.
Okay, I can go home now. Almost. so much, Mayor
Start it
Sutcliffe.
and then I'll turn it off.
Of Alyssa Tomkins for a few minutes, who's going to help you understand, for the non-lawyers among us, Mr. Mayor, why the KGPC believes we need to participate in this appeal. I'll remind you that the first appeal to the Court of Appeal, when we won LaBrosse's first decision, and Clublink decided to take it to the Court of Appeal, the KGPC, with advice, decided against participating. It is probably the largest decision I've ever regretted in my entire life. And I've been through a few wars, let me tell you. So, tonight I want you to understand and listen and have the chance later to ask questions of Alyssa, but she's going to make it really clear to you, I hope, so that you understand why the city will be there, but why the KGPC must be there. Listen up. Alyssa Tomkins, Galway's WLG.
Thanks, everyone. And when we were talking about the size of our bill, part of the reason it's not as high as it could be is we offer a discount. So we give a 10% discount. So my rate is shockingly high. I couldn't pay it myself, but it's over $500 an hour. So every hour I work, though, $50 goes from Gowlings to the KGPC in terms of a discount that we offer. So it's not a case of, you know, us making out like bandits. We're part of the fight. And I moved firms partway through, and Gowlings was on board with the fight right away. Gowlings is, of course, very present in the Kanata North business community, and they were eager to get on board right away in the fight. So we're there with you, and I'm busy, you know, I can work at full rate. Every hour we do try to contribute our part to this fight. So now's the less exciting part. Well, I find it very exciting, but it's pretty technical law. But I'll start by doing a bit of a history to try to explain, again, as Barbara said, what happened the first time, why we weren't there, what actually happened at the hearing, and then why we need to be there this time. So the first time, most of the fight was about, you've all heard about it now, an arcane property law concept called the rule against perpetuities. That was always the city's fight to have. We had a separate argument. We argued that the 40% principle constituted a restrictive covenant. So we were focusing on other provisions in the contract. The provisions that gave rise to the so-called perpetuities concern were sections 5 sub 4 and section 9 of the 1981 40% agreement. And to summarize the rule, it just means that ownership in land can't transfer or be conveyed outside of the perpetuities period, which is a set amount, 21 years. And those provisions dealt with the city's ability to get the land back in the event that Clublink, or the developer, right, it was Campo at the time, whatever developer owned it, decided to stop operating the golf course. The city had a contractual right to get the land back for $1. And that was actually an important protection for the community because it meant that the city controlled the path to development. So for that land to be developed, the city of Ottawa had to say, the city of Kanata at the time, the city had to say, yeah, we don't want that land for $1. So that gave a lot of confidence that that wouldn't actually happen. Or at the very least, if your elected representatives decided to do that, then you would have, you know, a lot to say about them potentially at the next election. So that was a really important protection for the city. However, it did result in this situation where the land could vest or be conveyed outside of this 21-year perpetuities period. So that was the argument before Justice LaBrosse. The first time he said, no, the rule doesn't arise the provisions don't create what's called an interest in land. On appeal, that was really the focus of Clublink's appeal. The issue that has now come up, called severance, is what you do when some provisions of a contract get struck. And Clublink had argued the first time that if we're right on perpetuities, those provisions cannot be severed, meaning that the whole contract falls. Basically, if those provisions are illegal, then the whole contract is illegal. The coalition actually responded on that point. We're the ones that responded because we needed to protect the rest of the agreement where the 40% principle was. Justice Labrosse, because he had found there's no problem with perpetuities, he said, I don't need to determine the severance issue. On appeal, we looked at Clublink's notice of appeal. It didn't deal with that issue. As a result, part of what we said is, look, we can't, the chance of us getting leave to intervene is not very high if we're just gonna go there and repeat the city's arguments. And we felt confident the city would make strong arguments on the rule against perpetuities. So we decided, look, we're not gonna appeal, or we're not gonna seek leave to intervene in the appeal. At the appeal, I'm sitting at home watching it, by then we're in COVID. Clublink starts talking about severance. And I'm absolutely losing my mind. I'm emailing Kirsten Crane, council for the city, saying, this is not supposed to be talked about. It's not permissible. Fortunately, the Court of Appeal, even though they ruled in Clublink's favor, said, we don't have enough information to make a ruling on severance. Because if they had, then there would have been a real problem in terms of fairness. When we went back before Justice Labrosse, Clublink Council tried to take the position that because we hadn't sought leave to intervene, we were now excluded and we couldn't make arguments on severance, at which point I did actually get quite, I thought this discussion wouldn't be heated, but it's coming back. And I brought up the fact that, you said you weren't going to talk about severance, you did. From a legal perspective, it was frankly quite surprising behavior. And as a result, once I brought that up, I pointed out your notice of appeal didn't include severance. You never should have even talked about it in the hearing. Clublink at that point backed off, and we were then allowed back into the proceeding. So this issue of so-called severance is a contractual law concept that talks about what happens when some provisions of a contract are illegal. So the city, in their notice of appeal, has said, as they said below, their primary position is that severance doesn't apply. So Justice Labrosse had actually agreed that severance didn't apply, but then kind of severed. So on appeal, the city is continuing to take the position that severance doesn't apply, that Justice Labrosse limited his jurisdiction that the Court of Appeal had given him. And this is where it gets quite technical in terms of what directions had been provided by the Court of Appeal to Justice Labrosse. The city is saying that he improperly interpreted what the Court of Appeal had asked him to do, by saying, I'm not severing, I'm just determining what to do with inoperable provisions. And the city says he cited no case law and no statutory authority for his approach, and that's right. So the city is saying that's an error of law. They're saying the jurisdictional error is an error of law. Then they say in the alternative, in the event that, I don't know how to put it, that he made errors of law in contractual interpretation, if he was actually interpreting those provisions. So it's a strange decision because, as I said, we thought, and Clublink had argued before Justice Labrosse the first time and the second time, that severance applied. We thought Justice Labros might determine it on that, or he might determine it on the city's theory. He kind of did neither, but didn't really cite any legal basis for what he was doing. And by legal, I mean common law or statute. So here we are, headed probably to the, and frankly, I think he knew, he said it in the hearing. I think some of you heard that, you know, somebody would probably be taking this to Toronto. So in terms of the city's appeal, they are maintaining their arguments. Severance has always been our fight. It's always been the approach that we advocated. Well, we said you can sever them and then you keep the 40% principle. So we've always had an alternative approach, and it's very normal in law to have alternative arguments. I think you've seen it all, the classic is like, you know, I didn't do it, but if I did, I was drunk, and if I wasn't drunk, I would, you know. So we do alternative arguments all the time, and in that regard, we've been working closely with the city, and we're confident that the arguments we want to raise at the Court of Appeal, where we say, if this doctrine of severance does apply, Justice Labros didn't apply it right. And the reason we say he didn't apply it right, if he was going to sever, he had to go through the test that the Supreme Court of Canada set out. And he didn't do that. He just said, I'm going to see how closely related these provisions are, and if they're related, they're inoperable. We say, no, if you're going to do, and then he struck some provisions out, which is severing. But of the provisions he severed, it included the 40% principle, because he said it was so closely related to that right to get the land back for the city. So we say, fine, if you're gonna undertake that analysis, being the striking of the provisions, then you had to go through the proper test. And why is that important? Well, the reason it's important is the fourth factor in that test is that if you strike provisions of a contract, it can't create a windfall for either of the parties. And from our perspective, there's no doubt this creates a massive windfall for the developer. The developer got the land, and it was severely encumbered, including with this provision that in the event that the developer decided to stop using it as a golf course, the city of Ottawa would be able to get the land back for $1, thereby controlling the land use process. So that was a really important protection for the community. And by removing that, then it creates, now they can develop the land freely. I mean, that is such a windfall for the developer, and it goes so far in the other direction from what the parties intended, which the whole purpose of the exercise, and this is again, there we start to come together with the city, and the city's appeal says again, what was the mutual intention of the parties? Well, it was to create 40% green space. So that's where our appeal is different than the city, and it's the argument that we have been running throughout. As I said, we didn't get to make it at the Court of Appeal last time because Clublink didn't tell us they were planning to make it. But this time it's essential that we be there, because this has been our fight throughout. It works with the city's argument. We're not undermining the city. It's an alternative to the city's argument. If they're right, and the inoperability doctrine, or however the judge framed it, if that was an error, then we're happy to never get to the severance point and to just have the city be successful. But we need to be there in case the Court of Appeal says no, severance does apply. We need to be there to explain, how does it actually work? What are the factors that he ought to have considered? And what is the impact in particular of that fourth factor, which is about the windfall? Because it's just an extraordinary windfall for the developer in this case. So that is why our pitch is that it's really important for the coalition to be there in this fight at the Court of Appeal. We're doing our part, like I said, every hour we work, we're willing to maintain that, to continue to contribute. We're always here at these events. I'm going to Costa Rica at some point to a condo that I rented, so in an auction at the golf tournament. So all to say, we're with you in this fight, and we want to be with you. We aren't doing it for free though, so we do need some donations to help. There's a lot of work to come up with these arguments. They're intricate, they're complicated, and I've tried my best to simplify it for everybody, but it is a rather convoluted path that we've come down, and the nuance and the difference between the arguments, but we really do want to be there, and the community needs to have a voice too. It's important. There's not just the value of our legal argument, though I promise you I'll deliver a good value submission. There's the importance too that the Court of Appeals see that the community is there and that the community takes a stand.
So you now have a few minutes as we finish the rest of the program to come up with your questions for Alyssa, and you'll all get LLB confirmed at the end of the program if you can name the two clauses that we tumbled over. Alyssa, that you can imagine what the meetings are like. You can imagine my inbox. Our other special guest has arrived, so you missed the mayor's speech, you missed the MP speech, you caught the last half. You don't get an LLB, you only get an LL. You missed the sign waving. Do you want to do the sign waving one more time for the good councillor? Woo! No reason. I give you our new freshman councillor. Man, oh man, she's done wonders in a couple of years. Kanata North Ward 4 Councillor Cathy Curry, who gets to talk about what else the city can do to stop this proposal.
I might be a freshman to this job, but let me just start by telling you I used to be the ladies playing director at the Kanata Lakes Golf and Country Club. I have golfed that golf course about 500,000 times, and I played it when it was 9 holes. I watched it be developed to 18 holes. I coached Tom McBroom's daughter in Toronto, T-ball. So I'm a member of Clublink. So never fear, okay? I'm with you. There's no need for you to tell me how important this is. So what we've talked about a lot is the 40% agreement, right? The 40% agreement is very important. It's very important to the city. So important that the city on its own, without needing a council motion, decided to challenge some of it all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. So the 40% agreement is absolutely critical. However, I'm here to tell you, and I believe the mayor has also made these points, there are other powers the city has. What we've always said, the city has all kinds of powers. You know the expression, you can't fight City Hall? Well, there's a reason why people say that. The city has a lot of power. However, it would be so nice if the province were able to do something more quickly that would save us all a lot of money and time and effort and energy, but that doesn't seem to be happening just yet. So I want to talk to you about some of the powers the city has. So under the Planning Act, we at Planning Committee, we have to approve applications for construction. And we can do that. But there are all kinds of other things that have to be approved as well. When you think about whenever a construction project goes forward, roads have to be ripped up, infrastructure under the roads has to be replaced, right? Well, in this case, because there is no stormwater plan, the city will never approve the development until there is one. And that is not appealable to the OLT. If there ever were a stormwater plan, all of the sanitary sewers and stormwater sewers and piping would have to be replaced all the way up to the Ottawa River, ripping up roads, replacing all that infrastructure. The city does not have to approve that. And none of that is appealable to the OLT. And Clublink has been told by our planning department that the planning department and the city of Ottawa is not in support of this development, so don't expect us to be approving some of these things. Believe it or not, a simple approval to close a road, to replace infrastructure under a road, is something that the power the city has, and the city doesn't even have to close the road to enable that work to be done. So, as I said, you can't fight City Hall. The City Hall has a ton of power. It's just that all of that stuff takes us through decades of fighting this all the way along. When our hope has been that the province would come in and potentially invoke a provincial interest, as they did. They didn't fully invoke a provincial interest for Glen Abbey and Oakville, but they threatened it. And they could at least threaten it here, and we would love it if they would invoke one. And invoking a provincial interest is a separate thing, but if it were done, that would make things a heck of a lot easier. So, until then, we carry on. You know, you've heard from Mr. Mayor Sutcliffe here. He's not a lot like Jim Watson, but similar in that he has said the same things, right? The city is not in favor of this development. And, you know, we get a lot, and, you know, we have right now, the federal government's giving us lots of money as a city, hopefully for more housing. So we get a lot of criticism, and the mayor will as well. Why would we fight housing when housing is really needed? However, this is not about housing, this is about the city's problem with the stormwater management on that property. I don't know who's talked about this component, but Urbandale for sections 7, 8, and 9 up Terry Fox, right? 9 around the other side of the beaver ponds being developed. 7 and 8 will drain to the beaver pond in an extreme weather event. Some of it will drain to Shirley's Brook, some will drain to the beaver pond. So if Urbandale's gonna already drain to the beaver pond, then how can Clublink possibly come in and build houses and drain to the beaver pond as well? The beaver pond is already overflowed. So all of that is why the city's planning department says we are not in support of this development. It's not about housing, it's not about golf. I mean, the people that talk to me about golf, like, yeah, I was the ladies playing director, did I mention that? But it's not about golf. Anyway, my main point is we are with you. We will take it all the way as far as we need to go. We have lots of different powers. It's just that we'd like to not be doing this 20, 30 years from now. Anyway, happy to answer any questions.
So the last little piece that I'd like to talk with you about, and then we'll get right to your questions and answers, and homeward bound we go. I want to talk with you a little bit about, for those that really do read the newsletters and write me back and tell me what you think. You'll remember that I updated you back in April 2022 about a decision that the coalition had made on expert advice to pursue a direct legal action against Clublink regarding a restrictive covenant that they had signed on acquiring the property that prevented the regrading of the property. Now, if you remember, we pursued it then, not wanting to miss the opportunity because of determined legal timelines at play in the province. Simply put, normally you have a year, I believe it is, stand to be corrected, 12 months?
2 years.
2 years, you're right, 2 years from the time the application was laid to argue the restrictive covenant. We had an extended timeline because of COVID. That timeline ended in April 2022. So we had to make a decision. Should we pursue this as a plan B if the 40% agreement did not come to fruition for us? Or should we just walk away from it knowing it's something we could have, should have, ought to have done? We decided to pursue it. We have spent some money along the way pursuing it. And also, I don't like the word delay, but to Clublink, they are arguing that we have been delaying. The truth be told, our belief is that that argument or that action to go to court and argue that restrictive covenant would not be necessary if we won the 40% agreement argument. And so we were waiting for that to happen with Justice LaBrosse's second decision. We didn't do so well. So now we're in a place, do we continue to plan and to pursue the restrictive covenant? I remind you, the coalition pursues the restrictive covenant because the city is not a landowner as part of that argument, and the city is therefore not in a position to pursue that violation of the restrictive covenant. We are, or we were. The other issue is that we needed a landowner to do that. And I'm very grateful for so many of you who reached out when you realized that I was the landowner that agreed to do that. I appreciate your offers of money and kindness. I said I didn't need it. I didn't need it then, but I do need it now. I remember who you are. All to say, we have continued to monitor this action. But at the crux of this action is something we struggled with from the beginning. This is not a sandbox. This is where the big boys play. They wear suspenders, they wear belts. These guys are tough and they're mean. Clublink has been, and I'm not mincing my words, guys. Clublink has been threatening us with costs of up to $200,000 for delay on this motion. They are threatening us with additional costs on our loss, our recent loss. Now they're threatening me because my name is on the action. We've looked at this from both sides. We stand in front of you tonight asking you for more money to fight the main fight, the 40% agreement. We don't want to saddle the community with more costs. And so, the coalition has decided to back away from the restrictive covenant application. Why? Why? You say, what? What? If it's a good plan B, why not pursue it? Remember, it was only going to be good for 13 years. All restrictive covenants have a timeline of 40 years. They signed it in 1996. It will expire in 2036. So what we were buying was, with a victory, was a guarantee of 13 years. That's all. Once, when we had to fundraise for the costs of that, I fundraise, I come out, I say, I need another $50,000, let's do that. But if we lose, they're coming at us for another $250,000 or more. The coalition took the decision recently to step back from this. Why? So that I can stand in front of you tonight and argue that the severance argument for the 40% agreement is ours and we need to be there. So don't think of it as a loss, think of it as a strategic shift. I've said it. You can come at me with more questions and answers, and of course, Alyssa will have something to say about it too. But I think it's the right thing to do.
Hello everyone, it's Karen McCrimmon here, your Member of Provincial Parliament. Good evening from Toronto. I want to begin by thanking you for the support and trust you placed in me in last summer's by-election. I'm honored to be once again serving the people of Kanata-Carleton. Thank you. Sorry I couldn't be with you tonight. I'm here in Queen's Park. We're in the middle of midnight sittings in the run-up to the Christmas recess. But I wanted to talk with you. Honestly, I too was disappointed in the recent court ruling, but I don't want you to be discouraged. You know, There are many, many more levers and mechanisms that we can use to delay and ultimately prevent the proposed development. Stormwater management is one issue I think is absolutely critical, especially as we watch catastrophic flooding all over the world. But it's not only that. I think this is a critical issue for the safety and security and well-being of our entire community. I'm grateful for the work being done by the Kanata Lakes Green Space Protection Coalition, and I'm fortunate to have been a member of that coalition for many years. It's been a privilege to work with people as talented and committed as them. It's been tenacious, the advocacy has been remarkable, and I'm just so very proud of all of you. Barbara, Jeff, the whole team, the whole community that supports them, and myself, and Jenna, and Cathy, we will all continue to work for what's best for our community. So we will fight the good fight, and we will keep going. And that's all we need to do is just keep going. So thank you for everything you've done to make a difference. Thank you for caring enough to come out and supporting this marvelous team that you've put together. So I'm really sorry I couldn't be with you tonight, but you know I'm there in my heart is with you. All right, I look forward to seeing you all very soon. If you ever want to get a hold of me, you can just call 613-599-3000. If you have any good ideas, I'd always love to hear them. So take good care, everyone, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye for now.
I'm at the time was the head of the Kanata Beaverbrook Community Association, I still am. And, you know, that was an incentive to help pull together the KGPC, which is now ably manned by Barbara and Jeff and everybody else, and I'm a non-voting member for all sorts of reasons we won't get into. One of the things that, as we said for 5 years, this is a marathon. We have successfully held off Clublink, and with the assistance of the city, we can still win. It's not over. We understand there's fatigue, there's confusion, but that's what Clublink relies upon. Developers play a long game. Land will only continue to appreciate, and they're not going to give up. The city of Oakville fought Clublink on the Glen Abbey issue for more than 5 years, and they eventually won. So this is a long game. The donations we get following this town hall will determine if we can keep up the fight. The time has come that we need to raise money, and we need to raise it quickly. While the KGPC has worked hard to keep the cost of fundraising events low, we're limited on how much we can raise given the increased cost and time commitment for putting on those events. We need direct donations. It's Giving Tuesday. We didn't plan it this way. It was the only time the hall was available. We're looking to raise $100,000 urgently. Please consider donating $1,000 per household. So, why is $1,000 a worthwhile investment? If we don't stop Clublink, property values will decline by 15% for those homes that back onto the golf course. You can do the math, that's $150,000 on a $1 million home. And there's a lot of homes that are worth a lot more than that. Homes across the street will lose 12%. The rest of Kanata Lakes and Beaverbrook will see a loss of between 5 and 8%. You've heard this before, but I want to also give you a picture of what will happen if this development goes ahead. We'll have 10 plus years of blasting and construction. In some cases, mere meters from people's backyards. You'll be living next to heavy machinery, noise, dust, and foundation damage, most likely. If the current development happens, the risk of flooding will dramatically increase during construction, as the current stormwater management provided by the current golf course stormwater management features, of which the restrictive covenant was all about, will be entirely compromised. If you've seen standard subdivisions development techniques, they come in with bulldozers and scrape it to bedrock. If anybody's been north of the Beaver Pond and seen the KNL 7, 8, and 9 lands, you'll see exactly what we mean. And of course, that's the worst case for stormwater management. If development happens, the risk of flooding, as I said, extreme rainfalls and so-called 100-year storms are increasing frequency. For example, in August 2022, we got a day and a half of 100 millimeters of rain. That caused the Beaver Pond, which is at the low for the season at the end of July, to rise 2 meters and flood the banks, more than I've ever seen in any spring rain, and I've been here since '92. So that's 100 millimeters. There was a similar flood that hit Riverside in August 2023, and there's photographs of cars submerged up to their windshield. And creeping north, one of the things about weather in terms of extreme rain that's creeping north farther and farther is this summer, Vermont and Pennsylvania got hit with 3 days of rain at that. They got more than 400 millimeters. There's cars floating on the highway. Our current stormwater management system is undersized and for what's coming, and the city is aware of that with plans for dredging and other maintenance planned for the Kanata North stormwater management ponds in the next 2 years. Should Clublink win, as already been said, the city officials are also saying they would require extensive replacement of existing storm and sanitary sewers in the community, which would be under local streets. So not only would there be construction on the golf course, it would be throughout the community. That's not all. Mercury will be released from the soil. We will see an influx of hundreds of families in the new development, leading to increased road congestion. And our schools, like March Road, which has already got 31 portables, will be ever increasingly more crowded. There is no development to developing this land. Clublink's plan provides no social housing. Kanata North, which is approximately 16,000 homes and apartments, has already got 23,000 additional homes and apartments already approved at City Hall. All they require is detailed site plans and they can be built. More housing in Kanata is not needed. So please donate today. It is vital that the KBCA participate in appealing the latest court ruling. The severance argument needs to be heard. If you have neighbors who couldn't be here tonight, please encourage them to watch the recording, which we're making as we speak, of this town hall meeting. Thank you for helping save our green space.
So we're to the best part of it, the questions and answers, or the questions, and then hopefully the answers. So I'm going to start with a couple that were given to me before the evening, so you guys can get warmed up. Neil and our directors have a couple of microphones around so that we don't have to repeat the questions. We'll get home that much earlier. Peter Chapman, our treasurer, is very good with a square device in your plastic credit card. If you'd like to make a donation before you leave, we'll gladly accept it. Some of you have picked up signs. We have our sign contingent outside. If you've got wire frames at home and can just throw out a bad sign and replace it with a new sign, please do so. We've been replacing wire frames over the last 4 years, so I no longer have a frame for every sign. But I can fix that up and order some wire frames and get them out to you if that's what it comes to. So first question, what do our lawyers see as the strongest lawsuit going forward? For this, I don't need to turn to the lawyer. I have the answer. It's the 40% agreement, and that is why we are asking for your help. But let's be clear about it. The 40%, the restrictive covenant I spoke about was also a very strong case too, but we had a lot of issues. The primary one being finding a stormwater management expert that did not conflict out. What that means, if you don't know, Certainly these developers use a plethora of experts as they develop their properties and their sites, and whether it be planners or whether it's geologists, whether it's stormwater management engineers or building engineers, they use them all the time. And when an organization like Clublink, which is a property developer but not really a builder, partners with companies like Minto and Richcraft here in Ottawa, we are conflicted. We have a real problem finding experts to work with us. Everybody conflicts out. Why? Because they've done business with these companies historically. I can't tell you how many hours I've spent talking with engineers, certainly back when we started this, and certainly on the matter of stormwater. And quite simply put, while many of them were happy to meet with me, many of them were happy to buy me lunch. In some cases, they bought me dinner because they were so interested in what our community was doing. And actually so recognized the problems we were up against, but they have families to feed, and they were worried about where their job was coming from tomorrow. And Ottawa is a small town, and that is truly, in the end, why we've chosen not to pursue the restrictive covenant application. But having said that, we've heard the city's commitment. We've heard that the city has a lot of opportunities still in front of it.